Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session with your host,
Michael Rearden.
Right. So Renes Lophanor, right? Did I
Yeah.
get it right?
Yeah.
Right. I said I'm doing my best. So we're going to be talking about teacher, educator, and author of I Still Love Teaching Despite Having All the Reasons in the World to Quit, Creations of the Education System. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart. If you know a little bit about me, also a teacher, probably a very similar background to yourself. And it's something that we do have to look at because current administration is looking at the education system and saying we're spending all this money on education, yet we are not one of the leading nations in the world in education. We could look at New Zealand, we could look at Japan, just how they teach their children, and it's so different. And we have to ask ourselves, well, why? Why is this happening? Why is the education system not working for our children? And firsthand experience, that's why I have you here. Can you please tell us who you are and then how you got into writing this book?
Well, hi everyone, and thank you, Michael, for having me on your platform today. My name is Renes Lophanor, as Michael rightfully pronounced. I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for 22 years now in secondary school. I graduated in Sorbonne University, where I studied English and American literature and history, and moved to England after that, where I did the teacher training to become a qualified teacher in the UK. And for the last 22 years, I have taught in many schools with different background, with children from different ethnic group, different background and culture. And I must say that if I'm still standing today, unlike, unfortunately, a lot of colleagues who have deserted the profession for good reason, it's because I have found a way that has worked for me. But I decided to write this book because too much is too much. And I don't know if I will be able to sustain my love for teaching. So this book is a kind of a wake-up call for address to the policymakers and and fellow teachers for them to see and what can or should be changed in the education system, because we've all been to school and most of us didn't like school, let's face it, and yet we're still doing the same thing to our children, and so on and so on. Why? That's why I've written this book, to help fellow teachers who are still in the profession find a way to help them cope with the everyday work, and also to the policymakers to consider changing some things, because for each issue I identify, I offer some possible solutions as well, to make it more relevant and more useful to everyone.
Many good teachers are leaving the field. They just feel if the work they're doing is not creating the impact as they thought it would before they became teachers, or maybe they have been teachers for quite some time and they can see just how the system is failing the children. You have first experience with different demographic of children and working in different schools. And I want to know the difference, or ask you at least to share some light on the difference between lower funded schools versus the higher funded, or rather the funded schools. So is there a difference between those schools and the children in the education?
Yes, there is obvious difference. First of all, children in schools that are very well funded, those children have a lot of facilities available in the schools, and such as books, pens, spare books, spare pens. The school premises clean, and they organize lots of activities, extracurricular activities. They can organize trips abroad, which is very fulfilling for children, students, to be able to take part to such activities. The teachers are therefore happier to teach in such a space compared to the schools with what they call the disadvantaged schools, or schools in disadvantaged areas. Students come from, let's say, either poor or modest families, and therefore they don't have much at home. And very often, they go to school with no pen, no books, and the school itself has not got those resources to provide them most of the time, and you enter into a vicious circle where the student don't have what they need to access the knowledge. The teachers don't have either what they need to be able to teach those children. Most of the time, the teachers have to use their own money to buy resources and provide that to the students, because the parents can't, the school can't, because they lack the funding. And this is one of the reasons why teachers are also leaving, because they can see, first of all, as teachers, we're not paid as much as we should be paid compared to other professions that require the same level of education that we do. And on top of that, we have to pay as well to accommodate the teaching, to supplement what the school is supposed to provide. So the difference is in the results that the students get at the end of the school year. The quality of teaching is unfortunately impacted as well, and therefore the mental well-being of the students and the teachers. I mean, if you, it's like, I would say, it's like when you are well dressed, you dressed in suit, you tend to behave in a way that matches the way you dress. When you're dressed in rag, you tend to behave in a way that matches that. So if I could use that metaphor, let's say the dress, the suit wearing would be that of the well-funded school, and the rag would be that of the unfunded school. That's hopefully that would give you a clearer idea of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So another metaphor that came into my mind is that the budget for the schools is like the wood, and the teachers are the nails and the bolts that put it all together.
Mhm.
If you don't have the teachers having any lumber to even build, it doesn't matter how many nails and how many bolts we have.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so we're trying to build something here, right? We're trying to build children that are strong, resilient, happy, and going to be prosperous later on in life. And even when I was teaching, one of the things I saw early on, I said, this child is going to have so many challenges and struggles by the time they hit 18. What happens with all those struggles and challenges that they accumulate? They start to affect the mind of that individual, of being limited. Smart, I'm not dumb. Some teachers might have a bad day. They're so stressed out, right? They're not getting paid enough. So they have their own bills, they have their own worries, they have their own kids, maybe. And they might say something that's going to harm that child mentally. Be a garbage man. Oh, you should do this instead, right? You're not smart. And all of these things are something that you have to look at long term. So just to recap, you know, many students are just going to leave schooling without being equipped. We can look at financial literacy, for example, right? They're not ready
Mhm.
for the real world. They don't know how to balance a
So
checkbook. They don't know how to do taxes. And then they're kind of thrown to the wolves and they're expected to just know how to be an adult. And yet, many adults today don't even know how to be an adult.
you've hit you've hit a point that is so important. I started attending a finance course last April, and because myself, I was not literate enough in the finance in the financial world, even though I've been an adult, working adult for the last 22 years. I started teaching my students everything that I learned from that course. Every Wednesday, we have a session on finance, and they absolutely love it. I teach them how a debit card works, well, first of all, what debit card, credit card are, how they work, what a loan is, a mortgage, interest, interest rate, and recently I've been teaching them about cryptocurrency, and because that's something they, like you said, they will be facing as soon as they leave school and they enter the working world. Yet school is not at all equipping them for that, just like we were not equipped, you and I probably. Their parents don't know the half or anything from what I've been teaching them in those sessions. And me, that's one of the things that one of the subjects that I think, I believe should be mandatory in school. Of those to the other ones would be critical thinking and a few others. But the finance one, the type of world that we're living in, is capital is really vital to allow our students to have the opportunity to become more than they are expected to be by in the society. And yeah, should school should or teaching and educating students to become, say, entrepreneur rather than just worker.
True. I think about when we are looking at the classes, right? So we can have home ec so they can learn how to cook and sew. And we look at the finance classes and accounting classes so they know how to manage money. We can look at the critical thinking classes, philosophy classes, looking at just the human mind and potential. All of these things are not necessarily taught in school. We have our reading, our writing, and our arithmetic. But then, even though we have these curricula, a America, like you could be 16 and not even know how to read, or you could be 16 and not how to know how to do division. You have to ask yourself, why in the world is this happening? Because if they're supposed to learn multiplication and division in fourth grade, and fourth grade is, I believe, 11 or something in
11,
age.
yeah, yeah,
So
nine, 10, yeah.
how did this happen, right? We have a 5-year span of these children just kind of being passed on to the point of they're getting close to being graduated from high school and they still are not equipped to even do things at third or fourth grade level. How is this and why is this happening?
Happening because the focus of education is not what we're being told that it is. Imagine everyone who leaves school with a degree, is there any of them who actually become millionaire from the degree that they have achieved from school or uni? Very, very few, if any of them, but at least those that we know of, are people who did not either, who dropped out of school early, or who did not follow the normal, the standard way of education. People who went their own ways and to become who they are today. So that's kind of says a lot about what you about the promise that school supposedly have for us, our children. Maybe it was true many decades ago, but that's no longer true, and it's become less and less true today and in the future. You can become successful by spending the least time in school as possible. That is reality with the existence of AI and all the new technology nowadays. People can achieve a lot without school. Now imagine if this was being implemented in school, in the education system, in a way that benefit truly learning and teaching. I think we would be able to achieve a lot, a lot. The goal of the education system is not, like I said earlier, is not really to allow, might be a strong verb, but that's the way I see it. Is not to allow the people to become powerful after school with knowledge and skills. They get just the bare minimum, the illusion of having achieving.
Well, we like strong verbs here because we need action. And when it comes to the simple question of what is education, if education is not teaching and having the students there learn, because if the goal of school is to educate your child and your child is literally going to school not getting education, then what is the purpose of the school system that we're in?
Why it needs to be scrapped. Needs to be scrapped. Like you said, you're not scared of strong verbs, so not scared of strong measures either, I hope. And too many, I mean, one of the most pressing changes in the education system is we need to shift away from standardized tests. We keep testing for children some specific metrics, specific subjects using a limited amount of metrics, which do not necessarily reflect real life or even the moment, the does not reflect the true abilities to do things. For example, you can have a bad day today, and but unfortunately, that's the day of the test, and you do badly. Does that mean you are worthless? No, but in the mind of that child, the parents and society, that child is a failure, and they will carry that with them, and that's one of the reasons why they are so stressed, and an exam is approaching, because they know that that exam is going to determine who they really are. So I'm waiting to make my students understand and accept the fact that the test, the result of the test, the grade that they have, no way determine who they are. They are who they are regardless. And I know what they are worth and what they can do. Fortunately, I think if more people were thinking like that, that would help the students feel more comfortable with themselves. And therefore, they would be more prone to try new things, more prone to attempt um, things that they're scared of doing because they are afraid of making mistakes. And yet, we know that making mistakes is paramount in the learning. You have to make mistakes to learn, and it's the main reason why in my lessons I say to the students, guys, I want you to make mistakes. I want you to make plenty of mistakes today. They look at me, so why? You can't say that. I say, yes, I can. And then, why do I want you to make plenty of mistakes? One of them would put their hands up. We can learn from our mistakes. There you go. So you know that's the way we learn. So go for it. Make mistakes in my lessons. And that way, any mistake that you make in my lessons, you are not going to make it in the exam or later on.
It's teachers like you that make children of school or want to learn or want to try. Because, if we have a teacher who's just all about grades and she has her teacher's pets or he has his teacher's pets because, oh, you're such a good student, you're getting all of these grades. And in a sense, it makes the teacher feel good because the student got a good grade. Like, oh, I'm doing my job well. Like, this student is so smart. There's been so many studies on like children and being geniuses and what happens to them with just going to school for a short period of time within 1, 2, 3 years, and how they just kind of dumb down because essentially before they hit a pre-K and kindergarten, if you test children, they're like at the level of genius. About 70 to 80% of them are at the genius level, and then by third grade, fourth grade, it's like and 30%. It's like, what happened to the other 40%? And it's because they had that burden of you got to get a good grade. They had the stress of all of these standardized testings. And I mean, I saw it firsthand. I remember it was a first grader, and she again, was that student who was just a wonderful student to be around. She had lovely energy. She was probably the top in her class. Regardless of all of that good stuff that she was probably the most stressed the standardized testing because she had that burden of achievement. She's like, I have to do good because my teacher is going to look at me a certain way. My students, my peers might look at me a certain way. My parents are going to look at me a certain way. And she's in first grade. And imagine you're 7 in first grade. You are going to compound that by the next 11 years of your life, and now you're 18. Of course you're going to have mental problems later on in life. There's an epidemic of mental illness in the world. They say by this year 2025 is basically 2025, 50% of adults are going to suffer from some type of mental illness. I was reading a book and they were talking about all of the different things that can go on in the mind and what we do wrong in the education system, essentially. One of the things we do is we lock them in a building with dim lights and we say sit at a desk. Children are supposed to have at least 2 hours of
Yes.
uninterrupted play every single day. And yet we give them 20 minutes here. If they're naughty, we take away their recess. And then we wonder why these students are doing so bad. So we can have all the statistics, we can have the research to back what is happening. And as you said early on so brilliantly, we or parents in general will still send their children to school. But it's not the end all because most parents are now waking up. Most parents are like, I'm going to homeschool my child. And so that has had a huge uptick. And I know some parents, they still want their kids to go to school. So they'll figure out a way to send them to private schools, and those schools are going to be better because they that burden of achievement. Essentially, it's saying we are this school, you're paying for us, so we better give you something good. Otherwise, we know you're going to take your child out. So those teachers are going to go the extra mile versus a public school teacher who might be checked out already, tenured, kicked in, has no supplies. At the end of the year, let's put on a movie. So we waste so much time doing the remedial stuff and not so much educating the child. I can't tell you how many hours are spent having kindergartners walk in line. Like they spent probably 2 or 3 hours a day just learning how to walk in line. And where's the dancing? Where's the gym? Where's the learning? And that's not happening. So, I wanted to ask you, what would be some fixes that teachers, that the system, that parents can start to implement to remedy this problem?
First of all, for all adults to remember what it was like when they were a kid at school. What did they like and what did they hate at school? Anything that they know that they hated, just put that aside. And I know they remember the things they hated. And so, and also more, give more value to playing. Look at all children. Where they learn is by playing naturally. That's just a natural fact. Children, animals, the same. Yet, as they are growing, you say we put them in a box. Actually, the title of my book, the original title of my book was The Box. Actually, the educational box. I changed it for what it is now because I had in mind that box that the school building is, in which parents take their kids for the whole day and with lots of strangers. The kid is just like in prison. You're not allowed to talk when you're in class with your friends. You're not allowed to talk to them. So for me, that's so counter nature. Human being by nature, the social species. We need to communicate. We need to talk to each other in order to learn from each other and to develop. But yet in the classroom, you're not allowed to talk unless the teacher allows you. And when he or she does, that's for a limited amount of time for something specific. You're not allowed to divert. So there is that. There's also collaboration. Tests that you do, you have to do them on your own. Homework you're expected to do them on your own. Everything in the school is individual, supposed to be individually done. And when you leave school, as soon as you leave school, you start working in a company, however, you're not on your own. You're supposed to be working as a team, make the company go together as a team. Anyone who is in as a lone wolf working on their own, that person is most likely going to be sacked or be seen negatively. So what do I do in my classes, for example? When we do a test, of the way that I remove the burden of stress on my students is to allow them to do the test as in groups of three. And they will look at me. Isn't that cheating, sir? I said, no, I am allowing you. So it's not cheating. Right? It would be cheating if I told you you're not allowed to and then you did. And then, but there's a catch. If you do the test on your own, the mistake you make counts as 1 point plus, right? But if you accept to do it in pairs or as a group, for each mistake, I will take 2 points off. You choose. What do you think they chose? They still chose to do it collaboratively because that's natural for us human. And if one of them in the group confident enough on their own. Say that person A doesn't know much about the task. Person B neither. Person C neither. But together they believe that they will have a better chance to do well, despite the fact the higher stage. They tend to do much better when they're working together. So that's the second thing. So work collaboratively, and allow students to talk, and allow students to play. I think something wrong in society in general. As long as we are children, we are happy, right? See a child play in the cold, in the snow, bare hands, they're fine, worryless. But as they are growing up, society will want them to put gloves. You have to put the gloves on. You can't play like that. It's too cold. And then gradually, you are confining child's mind into a box again. we get back to the idea of the box, and then they are losing the natural instinct to interact with people, to learn, to try things, not to be scared of failing. So all this is being suppressed by society and through schools, therefore. So these are some of the things that needs to be changed. The standardized test. First of all, the standardized testing is done the end. Well, let's say once or twice a term, or maybe let's say the final one they do. Even if that student has been doing well throughout the school year, still under stress, they still have to pass that final one, without which they have to repeat the year or they fail. And that is fair. Even though I say to my students, sorry, but fair does not exist in nature. Put it in their words, that's not fair. We would need to be allowed to take into account all the work they've done throughout the year, and not a final deciding, and give more breaks. It's like in Finland. That's one of the examples that I developed in my book. The school system in Finland is amazing. There's no test at all in primary school. At all. In a class, you have pupils from different age groups, like pupils who would be in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, in the same class, small class of about 15 to 20 students, and they are all working together. And that's a reflection of society, where you have people of different age groups. Was in the school, at least in England, I'm not sure what it's like in the US. In England, students are placed in age group in the school years. Now, students who are in year 6 are 10. Those who are in year 7 are 11, going to 12, and so on. And they are not allowed to mingle in most cases across the school, except during lunchtime. Yeah, but apart from that, no.
It's like a Montessori type of
Yeah.
thing, I think, in Finland, because it doesn't matter what grade you are. So you could be 4th grade working with a 1st grader, because what happens, and this is really good, that child is looking up to this 4th grader as a
Yes.
leader, a
Yes.
mentor, a teacher. And then now that 4th grader is like, oh wow, like this this one is looking up to me.
Mhm.
So let me make sure I'm something worth looking up to. And it's not even that it's like the teacher is doing it. It's like a first grader is doing it. So then it's not like, oh, my parent is giving me this, a teacher is giving me, it's a first grader. So like to them, it's kind of like, I'm the big sister, I'm the big brother, right? I'm the leader. This is why I love 8 to 8 schools. If we have to talk about schools in general, I like schools that go from K to 8 and they don't separate elementary, middle school. Because what happens in those environments when you separate elementary and middle school is that now those sixth, seventh, and eighth graders don't have any younger children looking up to them.
Yeah, to interact. Yeah.
You know what they do? They let their hormones go crazy. And that's
Mm.
why middle school teachers like middle school is so tough. And it's because typically the types of schools are they separate middle school, and those middle schoolers won't see those elementary school kids. But if you mix them, those middle schoolers will be much more aligned, even though the hormones are raging, even though they have, maybe bad peers in the mix. They will still say, I need to show up because the little ones are watching. And then also teachers are also kind of whispering in those ears, you're the leaders of these schools. So you have to make sure you are setting an example. And I remember even when I was going in school, I would look at the big kids and like, oh, the big kids, let's see what they're doing. And you
Yeah.
almost mimic them. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
it's not a bad thing, but then at the same time, we do have to get into the root causes of the education system. It's not so much that the kids are bad. It's not so much that the teachers are bad. It's like it's not even so much the parents are bad. Because I know parents today are like, I'm gonna fight for my kids and I'm gonna make sure they get an A and things like that. And we can look at all these problems and we can say that this is a little bit of it, this is a little bit of it. But the real problem is we forgot how to be human. And you were saying it, right? We should be out playing. We should be out working together. People just kind of forgot, like, hey, we can just do this by ourselves. And it's easy to to think that we can do this by ourselves because we go to the grocery store by ourselves, we get our food by ourselves, but we don't realize everything that takes for those apples to be in the grocery store. We don't understand everything it takes for the the nails to be at Home Depot or the wood to be at Home Depot. We just kind of expect it to be there. So that expectation is something that if we can relinquish and get back to our roots, we would do a better job raising the future generations. Is your forecast if we keep going down this road of not giving good education to our children, allowing the world to slowly deteriorate at the seams of what could be a good and prosperous educational system? As we as you said and as we were talking about, things have to change. What is the forecast if we don't change? And then of course we know the opposite would be if the forecast didn't come true.
But if we don't change, you will keep having more and more teachers leaving the profession, and that's already bad at the moment. As the population is world population is growing, and having you need more teachers, but they are leaving more and more. So you'll have less teachers. And, what school, by the way? There's a school in England, in London, which from last September started a class as a trial, a class with no teachers, where the students are being taught by AI. You believe that? The students are in front of a screen and do whatever the AI telling them to do. So that's the new teachers. And so if we are heading that way, personally, I am a humanist. I believe in human being. I don't see something, don't see a good ending for that. Then again, that's me. It might end up good. I don't know, but I don't see it at the moment. If it does, that would be sad for human being not to be able to solve human problem and themselves. Um, so what else? Well, I think people would, in the end, start homeschool, or more private schools would develop. Like we have a lot of countries where private schools are the majority. Like the country where I come from, I was born, Haiti. The majority of schools are private schools. I know in South America, a lot of countries in South America, in Africa, in Asia, majority of schools are private schools, and the education is more, take that more seriously, and do the Western countries, Europe and the United States, countries which have far more funding, let's say potentially far more funding, but they are not using it properly in order to to make the best of their the funding. So going forward that way, I would probably, if the ship, trust me, if I decide to leave the ship because I no longer believe that there's any hope in the school system, I don't see who would still have hope. And because I really love teaching, and if the day comes where I say I can't stand it, I mean that will be the end.
Yeah, we need to keep teachers like you in the schools because, again, you're going to be that beacon, as I said earlier, for those students. And a prediction also, we can look at what happened in 2019, 2020 with the pandemic, and they
Mm,
had distance learning and how ineffective that did and how much it dropped grade levels from children. The CDC had to come out and change childhood development for the children growing up, basically saying, okay, well, before you had to know 1,000 words, and now we're going to drop you down to 500 or something, right? So they basically dumbed down
yeah,
the requirements so
mhm.
they can say that the child was on grade level.
Child,
I don't
yeah,
know how many people saw that, but me as a parent, it's like that was one, and also as an educator, I was like,
mm,
no, they didn't. They basically lowered the bar so everyone else can win.
that's right.
And that's what that is exactly what would happen with AI also. So it's definitely not a good thing. It's not something that we want for our children, for the future human society. We need human interaction. We need to bring back community. We need to bring back a mindset that we're not in this by ourselves, but in this together. And our conversation today is definitely just the beginning. Because if you're a parent that has a child that's still young, there's going to be ways that you can you know, use and things that you can learn that's going to help that child develop a stronger and more effective and efficient way than currently just allowing them to go to school. Because I know many parents during the pandemic, especially, they said, teachers are just glorified babysitters. And then happened was now the parents were the teachers and they realized that they didn't have the educational background to even teach
Exactly.
their their children. So
Oh,
they
children.
exactly so now they understood that, whoa, like I don't have the background, teacher background. There was also talk about increasing salaries for teachers, but then again in the budget, we would rather spend it on war, spend it on all these other things that don't benefit the nation, culture, society in general. So we have our values mixed up and we have to realign our values. If you're a parent, of course, you can do that. You can take kids to private schools, you can do homeschooling, you can get your kids tutors, you can learn different methods. I'm sure by getting the book, going to be able to learn so many different things that you might have just skipped on. I learned a couple of things today myself. So this is important that we are becoming more aware of what's happening in the educational system and things that we can do to mitigate the damages that are happening to our children. So as we begin to wrap up, Renes, I would love to some final words from you, of course, and then please tell the audience where they can find you, and then once again, your book.
The final word will go from happened in 2020 when lockdown enforced. Parents became aware how difficult the teaching job is. Most of them found it extremely difficult, not to say impossible, to teach their own 2, 3 kids. Imagine 32 of them in a classroom with a stranger. We have to cater for each of them in that classroom. This is how difficult. So that's your difficulty times as many pupils in that class. So I would love parents to support teachers more. Thank you to those who are already doing that, because we need that in the profession in order for us to get the strength that we need mentally and physically to teach your children, the new generation. So that's what I will keep on doing as much as I can, because I still love teaching despite having all the reasons in the world to quit. So you can find book on Amazon, Great online platforms. And for me, people can find me either on my main website, which is reneslophanor.com, ENESLOPHANOR.com, and the same on the Instagram, Renes Lophanor, on Facebook as well.
I'll make it easy for everyone. All the links are going to be in the description box below. So follow him on socials, check out his website, get his book. It's right there, right? And as we press the importance of education today, I want you to understand that just because the educational system is broken, it doesn't mean that it's all bad. There are still teachers fighting the good fight. There are still parents that understand the importance of having their children interact with other children. I understand that we can say that things are all bad and, this doomsday and we should just kind of abandon the ship. And it's not that we have to abandon our children. It's just that we have to give them other avenues that are going to be better for them. And the avenue that they have right now is not going to be the first avenue I would recommend to any parent, to be honest, but it is an avenue that might be for you at this moment. But you do have to supplement resources for your child later on in life, because I'm telling you, I have kids coming into the office 13, 14, 15, and they have all the problems. It's because the things that were happening all the way up to that. I understand, as a parent, you might have financial constraints. You might have your own family situations, dilemmas, traumas that you might be healing from. But I always say, easier to raise a child that's not broken than to heal a broken adult. Right now, we have an opportunity to raise children that are not broken. So give yourself the resources, learn more about what Renes is doing, what he has done, and then add that tool to the toolbox or tools to the toolbox. So then you can become that beacon, that leader that your family needs. And I do want to thank you, Renes, for coming on, talking about your book, talking about happening in the world, the education system. And, you and I have so many things in common and alike. And I do hope that you can continue to, be that light for students and to continue to enrich the children that are coming into your life, because will be the end of society would probably be education is not reaching and doing what it needs to do. So I appreciate you coming on again. Links, like I said, will be right below, so everyone gets book.
Thank you very much, Michael. It was a great interview, and I've learned a lot from you as well. So thank you.